Welcome to Put the Metal On. My name is Dave Cullen and we're here for another review. This time we're going to be talking about Tremonti's sixth studio album, The End Will Show Us How, released on January 10th of this year. So before we get to the actual record itself, let's just talk more about the band first before we get to the record itself. So a lot of people are saying at the moment that Tremonti heading into this record are hitting a bit of a crossroads in the sense that while they're very respected bands and they're very reliable in their sound and their style, it's not as fresh as it used to be for some people. Don't get me wrong, fans of Tremonti can always rely on them for, heavy melodic heavy metal, with good, strong musicianship, great riffs and passionate performances. At the same time, one could argue it doesn't create the same excitement as it did from some of Tremonti's early work. So certainly going into the production of this record, there's a few questions that are very clear to me. One, can the band break out of their safe and someone could argue predictable songwriting? Would they take any risks or simply just stay in their comfort zone? Or three, is this an opportunity for Tremonti to perhaps redefine their identity as opposed to just coasting on what they're good at? Let's find out by breaking down the record section by section. First off, overall composition and cohesion. For me, the record really follows by logic. It's nothing doesn't make sense in how they progress each song. But that doesn't always mean that's fully realized. In this particular case, while the songs, for the most part, transition very smoothly, there's a good flow to it. It feels like it's placed next to each other without too much thought, really. The album, for the most part, stays true to, again, what Tremonti are good at. It's their signature heavy metal style, and it creates a good, solid sense for their tone. So they're very consistent with that. There's no question about that. The pacing, meanwhile, I feel has its issues. There's some tracks that feel too drawn out, while there's others that don't really have too much of a chance to develop. While the album is very much intact to what they do, it doesn't give that grip of cohesiveness to me. They're still missing that arc, I think, for making what could have been a really more immersive album. Number two, songwriting and arrangements. Now, I'm afraid this is gone right how I feared. There's no question, Mark Tremonti is an exceptionally talented songwriter. But as I feared, he's relying too much on what he knows. Like if we look at tracks like, for example, Just Too Much, it shows his knack for creating that anthem-like chorus and that drive of the guitar riff. At the same time, there's also songs that feel like variations of some of his past works that come across as very predictable and, I hate to say this, but also sounds a little recycled. At the same time, there's songs that do have that emotional depth, like The Mother, the Earth and I does bring that emotional weight to it. The only thing I'll say about that, though, is that the lyrical theme to it doesn't hit hard enough because it just feels too generic, and therefore it doesn't bring enough evolution to the songwriting, which, unfortunately, again, I feel Tremonti are trapped in. They're not breaking into any new territory with this record, I'm afraid. Number three, performance and musicianship. Can't argue with the musicianship, very solid instrumentally, but not groundbreaking either. I mean, Mark Tremonti's guitar work is very sharp as always. I feel, though, there's that lack of adventurousness to it. It almost feels too safe, which again, he leans to what he knows. Meanwhile, Eric Friedman's rhythm guitar and backing vocals, they add depth to the arrangement, so I can't have anything to complain there. Ryan Bennett on drums keeps things steady, but it's fine. There's nothing that stands out really that elevates the actual music. Oh, and I hate when this happens. Poor tenor Keegan's bass cannot be heard. That is a crime in any metal records for me. And because of that, there's no presence to it, or at least certainly not enough. I will say that Tremonti's vocals has definitely improved over the years. And while it can be powerful, though, there's still a strayness when he tries to push beyond his natural range. And it's because of that where I feel the emotional moments of the records just feel weaker rather than enhanced because of that. So if there was a tiny bit more work, or this is almost like the opposite of what I'm saying about his guitars, if he held back or stuck to what he knew with his range, because that's different, that's an organic instrument as opposed to a guitar, that would have had more of an impact, I feel. Number four, production and sound quality. So once again, Tremonti have lent on the help of Michael Elvis Basquet for the production of this record. And for the most part, it's very well balanced, very clean, maybe missing some raw energy though. I feel like it's a bit polished to the point where it's lacking that grit and punch that's, could help it a little bit actually. The drumming is very solid, very impactful, maybe could be more dynamic because there's that lack of organic feel to them. As I said, the vocals sit well, but doesn't command that presence enough for me. Meanwhile, the effects are very subtle. There's not much needs to be used here. It's well executed when it needs to be. Number 5, creativity and originality. Right, this is where it struggles the most for me, big time. He has a very clear and distinct idea as a musician, and he deserves all the respect in the world of Tremonti for this. At the same time, I'll say it again, it feels too safe. It doesn't take any creative risks, and while there's no doubt he does extremely well what he does well, it's nothing that we haven't heard before from Tremonti. The album leans too much on their familiar songwriting formulas, which, don't get me wrong, if you're a fan of that and you take comfort in that, that's absolutely fine. I understand. But the problem is that this familiarity of more of the same from them, it creates a much, much bigger space between themselves and the modern metal scene. So overall, it's a very strong record, but it lacks that something extra to make it fresh. I just think that's such a shame. Finally, number 6, replay value and impact. Now, don't get me wrong, this record definitely has its highlights. Tracks like Nails and Tomorrow We Will Fail are very solid, and I, for one, am a big fan of Tomorrow We Will Fail. I'll definitely listen to that a few times for sure. But again, the whole record is missing that wow factor that makes it endlessly playable. I've heard this record a few times now before I did this review, and every time I've listened to it, all the weaker tracks will start to blend in together way, way more easily. So while it's a respectable addition to Tremonti's records, and it will resonate with their core fan base, I can't see it being the defining record of their career, I'm afraid. Overall, the end will show us how well-crafted record, some very strong moments, but it plays too safe, as unfortunately fears. And while it's nothing against Tremonti's musicianship or the artistry of the record itself, it doesn't push any familiar grounds. Unfortunately, it's just more of the same of what they're good at. And that's the review for this record. Thank you so much for listening once again. If you liked this video, please give it a like there. And if you'd like to follow us for more reviews coming up, please give us a subscribe for more videos coming up very soon. We'll be back very soon to reveal a new review for a metal record coming up. So I hope you can check it out then. But until then, this has been Put the Metal On. I've been Dave Cullen. Stay safe and enjoy the metal.